Welcome to week 14 of From the Pressbox, the state semifinal edition. I'm Todd Porter with Repository and FNOhio.com.
I'm Chris Beaven with the Repository and FNOhio.com.
Chris, we have one game this week in Division I with North Canton Hoover taking on State Power Cleveland St. Ignatius over at Paul Brown Tiger Stadium on Saturday. And this is an historic season at Hoover with the most wins in school history, the most postseason wins in school history, and this is the deepest that this team has gone into the postseason since 1984 when they played for a state title. It's
been a historic season for them, and I think it's one of those that you're seeing because one guy's kind of elevated everybody. Erick Howard obviously came in. Him and Don Boyle were really the only two guys that have been all-county type players coming into this season, Boyle playing up front. And Erick has just really had an outstanding season at tailback and at linebacker. And I think you're seeing the guys around him really elevate their games, and you can go on and on up and down the lineup of the guys that are making plays.
Yeah, Erick Howard is the engine that drives the train at North Canton Hoover. But what I have been impressed with the Vikings in the second half of this season here is the way they've thrown the ball. They haven't thrown it all over the place, but they've done enough with Brett Tulajewski to keep defenses honest.
Brett's completing 72% of his passes in the playoffs. That's an astounding figure, especially when you look at he's a junior, he's a first-year starter, so it wasn't like he had playoff games under his belt a year ago when they made it to the regional finals. So his ability to look downfield occasionally to guys like Greg Beck, but also to dump it out of the backfield to Howard or his fullback Mike Kohler. He's also thrown to the tight end A.J. Sarbaugh. He really uses a lot of people, and I think that's a mark of Hoover over the years, and that's what Don Hertler likes to see is when he's able to get his passing game going and get it to different players.
Yeah, and the one thing that gets overlooked about North Canton Hoover is the job that they have done on the defensive side of the ball. That defense has given up, I think, just 2 touchdowns in the last 4 or 5 weeks in the second half of a game, which that's crunch time. And now, having said that, Hoover's defense is going to have their hands full this week because they have kind of been able to get by without facing any stellar offenses, marquee offenses. That's going to change this week.
Yeah, they're facing, obviously, an Ignatius team that can put up points. They had a run there where they had 49, 49, and 50 in 3 straight games around the middle of the season. They put up 37 in the first round, 37 last week. That's a great offense. Holland, their quarterback, is a kid that MAC schools are looking at. He's thrown 24 touchdowns. I think about 2,300 yards, so they've got a really good passing game. What'll be interesting, though, is this Ignatius team isn't great running the ball. They're 2 featured backs. Between them, average only 85 yards a game, so it'll be interesting to see how Hoover attacks them if they challenge them to try to run the ball maybe.
Well, that's why I think that this is not a very good matchup for Hoover's defense because it's tough to run the ball against Hoover's defense. They do such a great job in their run defense, and that's not Ignatius' strength, though, here. Throwing the football, I think Holland's got 33 touchdown passes, you mentioned. He's got 2 really good wide receivers in Joey Paris, who's a military service academy, Ivy League type of a receiver, and Connor Ryan, who is committed to Ball State already.
Yeah, they've got, and then DeSico, their third receiver, is taking 3 punts back, so they've got some weapons. But I think what Hoover can do maybe is make them completely one-dimensional. If they can completely take away that running game, at the high school level, it's a lot harder to throw in those conditions, especially if we get the type of weather we've been getting. And Hoover's secondary has been playing very well. They've been coming up with a lot of big interceptions at key points. So it'll be interesting to see if they can make Ignatius totally reliant on the pass. If they get this type of weather, that throws things up for grabs a little bit.
You mentioned in Hoover's secondary, Jeff Meek and Dan Nettleton, Joe Soretta, and Travis Moldovan have all done a great job defending the pass. Now, it'll be interesting to see because this is a different passing game than they are used to going against. This is a pro-style passing game.
But their receivers run very disciplined routes. Seeing Ignatius over the years, you can count on their guys being where they're supposed to be on any particular pass play. So you've got to be disciplined in your coverage. You can't take any bad gambles. Hoover is usually a disciplined team, so I think it's a good matchup for them. And you mentioned, I mentioned the weather a little bit ago. I think it's going to be like this. And the one thing I think Hoover's got to like is if you get these conditions, they've got the best player in this game, Erick Howard. Yeah. And if they can somehow get an early lead, feed him the ball, then that's the dream scenario for them. Any sport, whatever you're playing, if you've got the best player on the field or on the court, you've got a chance.
Yeah, and Howard has done a remarkable job for North Canton, both on and off of both on offense and defense at linebacker. Basically what we're seeing now is Stark County about once every 10 years gets a player like this. It was Mike Doss. He's Mike Doss or Chris Spielman to North Canton Hoover because he's such a good linebacker as well.
Well, he's a tremendous hitter, and they're, spot dutying him over there. They're probably playing him, 50, 60% of the snaps. I would look for him to play there a little more this weekend, even though he's been nursing a hip problem. But they know when they put him out there, he's going to make plays. And Tim Hartzell's made plays for them all year at linebacker, so they've got a really good defense.
And it'll be good to see if he can get some pressure on the quarterback there. You mentioned Joey Paris and Connor Ryan, Ignatius as wide receivers. Joey Paris isn't their big play wide receiver. He does have 10 touchdowns and 781 yards receiving. Connor Ryan's more of the big play guy. He's averaging well over 20 yards a catch at 816 yards and 40 receptions. He's got 11 touchdowns. He doesn't get thrown to quite as often, but it looks like he's the one who gets deeper and more vertical in that offense.
Right, and that's the guy they'll probably have to take away. But I think anytime you're playing Ignatius, you can't focus too much on one guy. Over the years, they've proven that they can go to a lot of different sources. So I think the key for Hoover: stop the run, make them one-dimensional, see if they can get the early lead, and carry the ball with Erick Howard about 35 times.
There you have it from Coach Beaven, summing up the Division I state semifinal game Saturday between North Canton Hoover and Cleveland St. Ignatius. It's been a pleasure talking with you, and come back next week as we preview all of the state championship games that will be played at Fawcett Stadium and Paul Brown Tiger Stadium. For From the Press Box, I'm Todd Porter.
I'm Chris Beaven.
We'll see you next week.